Hello, everyone. I'm Ione Butler, and I'm the founder of Uplifting Content. And today's guest is the lovely Ben Feder. Ben, how are you this morning? Or is it afternoon where you are now?
Just afternoon. I'm in New York. So how are you? Nice to see you. It's nice to be here.
Thanks. Good afternoon. I would love for you to start off this conversation with you sharing a little bit about your story, who you are, telling us a little bit about your book that we'll talk about, just so that people can sort of get to know who you are and what it is you've got going on in your story, please.
Sure. So the book, I kind of my story is really um, about personal transformation in midlife, but it takes place over the course of a sabbatical that I took. And by way of background, and the reason I think listeners are interested is I used to be the CEO of a public company called Take Two Interactive. And Take Two Interactive is the publishers of some really hot video games like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, NBA 2K. And I went on board to orchestrate a turnaround of the company, which is, and today the company is massively successful, but at the time it wasn't. And so,
Mm.
so I'm kind of, I'm part investor, part operator, but involved in finance and in operations of businesses, of large businesses for a long time.
Hmm. And you had tell me about and so you took a sabbatical and went to Bali with your family. And so I'm fascinated to hear about what it's like being in this high flying position and having a job as a CEO of an organization like that and sort of helping it grow and things like that, because it's something that's completely foreign to me. And so I'm
Sure,
curious to know what that was like and what was the catalyst that made you want to take this sabbatical?
sure. So, look, being in a company, especially during a turnaround, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of risk, and there are a lot of voices in the room, right? There are shareholders, there are employees, there's the board, there's everybody, and everybody's kind of got their own view of what should happen. And it was a company that was troubled in many ways, mostly because of misdeeds that um, some previous management had done. And I came in mostly as the turnaround guy, and that the company had operations all over the world. So for my life, it was really just kind of circling the globe multiple times a year. We had operations, gosh, in Czech Republic, China, Australia, Singapore, California, Boston. I'm based in New York, so I was on an airplane a lot, and that's part of what's involved.
Mm.
Um, we went in a hostile takeover, and then while we're in, we were subject to a hostile takeover. So it's, I kind of feel like I've been both predator and prey in the context of
Mm.
all of this. While you're trying to orchestrate a turnaround, while you're trying to deal with creative talent that are super talented, and have a strong voice in the room. And so there are a lot of balls in the air. There's a lot of people and interests that need to be considered. But for the most part, I'm pretty disciplined in terms of focusing on delivering, the company to create value in the company, and that can be defined in any number of ways. Um, and it's team building. There's a lot. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and I kind of come second hand to me at this point. But I realize if you're starting um, from the beginning, it's hard to kind of encompass all in one sentence.
Hmm.
And then, so while I was doing this, and while I was circling the globe and orchestrating a turnaround of this company, I had four children at home and a wife and a family that I felt was not getting the better part of my attention.
Mm.
And to be specific, I had four kids. The youngest, when I took over the company, was about 3 years old, and my oldest was probably, I don't know, he was probably in fourth grade, fifth grade. And then you kind of fast forward to the time I decided to take it, and I remember walking into my apartment one day after work, and I knocked on the door of my oldest son's room, and I said hello, and he just gave me this kind of grunt, as teenagers do. And then at dinner, he kind of grunted some more, and I had this flash. It's kind of one of these moments of realization that I've been circling the globe for 4 years. He's been in his room. He's a serious student. He was studying, and he was about to enter high school, and I just thought, okay, he's going to enter high school. He's going to be sequestered in his room the entire time. And then he's going to go to college and he'll be out of the house and he's never coming back and it's all over.
Mm.
And then I thought about my youngest, who spent the ages 3 to 7 kind of not really knowing who I was. And I kind of talked to my kids and they all gave me the same feedbacks, like, you're never around.
Mm.
And I had this moment of realization of, this is where men become the fathers and husbands they never meant to be.
Mm.
That they pursue their careers, they pursue their ambitions, they do, one thing follows the next, and it's very exciting. And I believe me, I had a wonderful time leading this company. And there's there's a lot of fancy dinners and a lot of first class travel and all of that stuff, and it's intoxicating. And I realized I was suffering from a little bit of an addiction, frankly.
Mm. An
And
addiction to
so,
the work.
to success and to
Right.
achievement and to
Mm-hmm.
all of that, and that the relationships that mattered most to me in my life were being left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Or more benignly, that I was experiencing all of this, but I was experiencing it alone
Mm-hmm.
and not with the people that I really wanted to experience it with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of, I kind of had this moment, and I sort of said, if I don't change, if I don't do something, it's life is going to choose me instead of me choosing the life that I wanted to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, with my wife, after long conversations and a bunch of other people, decided to take a break. And at one point, I just went to my board and I sort of said, I've done everything you've asked me to do. I've taken the company from death's door to one of the best positioned companies in the industry. Today, it's still one of the best positioned companies in the industry. I've done everything you've asked me to do, but I owe my family some time. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to step down. And that was probably the most difficult, risky, and painful decision of my career.
Mm.
Um, and but I did it for something that I thought would be greater.
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, I kind of stepped off this great trajectory and just went on a different path.
So now I'd love to hear how long did you go? How long were you with the family in Bali, and how was that trip?
So door to door, it was 8 months,
Mm-hmm.
and 6 of which were in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things we thought about when we went to Bali was where to send our kids to school.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and it turns out the school was kind of a really important part of the experience. There's a wonderful place in Bali called the Green School, built by John and Cynthia Hardy. Um, John Hardy, some of you may know, is kind of the name behind John Hardy jewelry brand. And he has an amazing story, but he arrived in Bali when he was 18 years old, and when he sold his company, many years later, he just decided he was going to build a school that was dedicated first and foremost to environmental studies,
Mm.
but equally for that stood for creativity and joy of learning. And and for my kids who were in private schools in New York and kind of living that kind of life, where it's like college, 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 and here was a school that was deliberately not about that, and it was
Mm-hmm.
about cultivating creativity and, frankly, the kind of skill set that their generation, I think, really needs. It was an amazing eye opener to put my kids in that environment, and in the school itself, just the physical architecture of the school is just kind of these cathedrals of bamboo in the middle of the jungle, just all out of sustainable materials. It's just an extraordinary experience for everybody.
Tell me the name one more time. I'm gonna write that down and have a look after we talk.
It's called the Green School
Green School in Bali. Okay, cool.
in Bali.
Sounds cool.
And well, it's an amazing place, and the
Mm.
Hardys are an amazing couple.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a great part of our experience. And then for me personally, after all this stimulation doing what I was doing, I kept turning to my wife and saying, well, what am I going to do once about? I was like, I have no idea what to do with my time. I'm so used to things moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, well, you'll just be bored. It'll be okay. You'll be bored. And I'm not okay being bored. Um, and so I had read a book that really kind of caught my interest, and I kind of made that one of my goals. And the book was called Joyful Wisdom by Yonggi Rinpoche. And it's a book about sort of about meditation, but it's really kind of written by a guy who grows up in Nepal with what he would describe today as severe anxiety disorder,
Mm-hmm.
um, and finds himself in a monastery and becomes a Buddhist monk, and then finds his way to the West and kind of sees all these people with their shining cars and their the shopping malls and all the rest of it. And he just thinks, oh, people here must be so happy.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of realizes what's going on. And the book is kind of really an inquiry into what's going on, and also kind of an antidote to it, which is basically mindful meditation. And
Mm-hmm.
so I made one of my goals to kind of learn how to meditate in Bali. I took up yoga. I took up art and painting. I turned into an artist along the way. And I really kind of felt that I had rewired my mind into a whole different way of being, as opposed to kind of doing all day long. I was
Mm.
learned how to be in this world without necessarily having to achieve something, without
Mm-hmm.
necessarily having to succeed at something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was an extraordinary thing to have done for me and for my family, to just sort of be with them and fully, and not having any distractions. And I was tempted along the way when I got there. You know, somebody asked me to join the board of that school,
Mm-hmm.
and some entrepreneurs asked, you know, hey, would you mentor me and all that stuff. I did agree to mentor one, but for the most part, I really sort of said I'd love to, but this is really, if I don't take this time now, I'm never going to get it again,
Yeah.
and so I
You're
need to
just
take it now.
switching one role for another, just further away from home.
Right, exactly
Yeah.
right. So, and it was just kind of this extraordinary thing. And the book is really um, an account of what was going on in my mind at the time, and that transition of going from somebody who's spends his time doing things and accomplishing things and striving and looking for success all the time, and kind of taking a moment at the right time of life. Look at the wrong time of life, it would have had no impact. But at the right time of life, when people begin to ask these kind of questions, um, it was really, really impactful to sort of sit and be contemplative for a little while and really
Mm-hmm.
think about the kind of life I want to lead, and the kind, you know, what I my life to that point, and you know what I wanted kind of the next period to be.
So what was the from working nonstop, I'm assuming, what was that like, spending time with your family? What type of stuff did you do? Were they at school a lot? I mean, how
So the,
was that? 'Cause I'm sure it was different.
so the shocking thing, which I
Mm-hmm.
should have anticipated, right? Like the blinding flash of the obvious. It's
Mm-hmm.
like I get to Bali and I realize that I am with my wife all day long, every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Nobody has any place to hide. It's just two of us. And you kind of realize, you know, for all these years of marriage, that's never happened.
Wow.
That had, all those years together, we were never together all day long, you know, for weekends and holidays,
Yeah.
yes, but not day in, day out, month after month. You're just all day long.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you know, Bali attracts a lot of people that are really trying to figure something out in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people that show up in Bali with marital problems, and
Mm.
with the hope of fixing them. And a lot of them end up in divorce. And that's, I mean, that is a resolution of some sort.
Mm.
Um, but I didn't go to Bali to fix my marriage. I kind of went to Bali so that my marriage wouldn't get destroyed by my work, but in part,
Mm-hmm.
but all of a sudden I kind of realized, like, well, I really need to get to know my family again,
Yeah.
not just my
Yeah.
wife and my kids. Um, and that's mostly what I wanted to do, is just get to know them again.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't always easy. And you know, we all had our moments, and it's hard to throw everybody into that situation. We don't have work to
Mm-hmm.
hide behind. The kids had school, but really wasn't the kind of school they were. You know, they didn't really have any homework. It was really, they were around a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you begin to get to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the hard part of it. The fun part of it was, you know, we're in the middle of Southeast Asia where none of us had ever been before, and we used it as an opportunity to look around and get to meet people from different cultures and different countries. And my kids, you know, noticed a sense of political awakening as they began to realize, um, you know, the impact of human beings on the earth, and kind of
Wow.
the whole environmental agenda that had, you know, that gets ignored in the schools that are trying to get their kids into colleges, where it's just kind of banging home math and history and English and all
Yeah. Yeah.
that. And it really taught them something about global citizenship, and
Mm.
taught them about their role and their place in the world, and how they wanted to spend their time and how they wanted to contribute.
Mm-hmm.
And felt we all kind of learned a lot. And then, there was a lot of learning. I had a lot of learning, and then it was just kind of, we take weekend trips every now and then. Took a weekend to Singapore, and on the way back, we decided to travel through Southeast Asia. So we, Swiss Family Robinson, I guess. I don't know, but we were, went to Cambodia and Vietnam, and we're just tourists. As between the two, I must say that sitting in one place, people ask me now, because people come to me when they're thinking about doing this, and some people do. We're thinking about traveling the world, or maybe we should go in one place. And my advice to all of them is stay in one place and get to know the place, because you get tired of being a tourist after a while.
Yeah, I agree. I was traveling for 3 months last year, and while it was wonderful, you never quite settle. You're always, everything is trying to figure out every day, where am I going? What am I doing? This is and so it is nice to just sort of to be and absorb a culture and a place, rather than just kind of be flighty through it. I love what you've done, and we've got a message from Joshua saying, "Good for you, Ben, for making the family choice and becoming mindful. Great story. Thanks for sharing." And I love what you did, and I feel like it's so important that people do take this time to spend with their families. But it must be so difficult for people. My mum was a single mum and worked really hard and had to do that. And so, I don't know, how would you advise people who might not be able to go to Bali for to take this time off? Is it a choice that you can make as a person, or does this need to be like a society changing thing? Because if parents have to work, and they're kind of in the business they're in, you're kind of work. What do you advise? Because I feel for people. I think it must be really tough. I've sort of set my life up where I don't have a 9 to 5 or a 6 to 7 p.m., which some people do. How would you propose that they kind of navigate that and bring back some time with family when you've got money stuff? And
I have a number of answers to that. One is, first of all, I have a deep appreciation for being in a company, you meet a lot of people, and even in my new job, I kind of mentor a lot of younger people. I think when you look at corporate America and elsewhere, people are dying in their cubes, right? They're spiritually dying. They're dying in their cubes, and there is this sense of awakening you get when you take yourself out of that, right? You kind of realize it's like this matrix moment of realize you take the red pill or the green pill, and you realize that you're kind of part of this machine. And until you kind of pull yourself out of it, you don't really understand that you need a little bit of resistance to claim your own life. I had the awakening after I actually took the action, but I think it's possible to have that kind of awakening while you're doing what you're doing, so that it doesn't grind you down as much as it tends to grind people down. That's kind of one answer. The other answer is that, when I was in Bali, I met a lot of people there that had very limited means. My friends were nurses and teachers and farmers and doctors, and some with debt, some with family problems at home. Everybody's had kind of their own issues, and everybody. And the truth is, Bali was a very open place, and everybody had their cards up on the table. But I don't think you need a ton of money to do what you're going to do. There's a wonderful to do this. Sorry, you need a ton of money to do this kind of thing. There's a wonderful book that I recommend for people that are interested in doing this kind of thing, and it's called Escape 101: How to Go on Sabbatical Without Losing Your Money or Your Mind. And I met lots of people there, by the way, who sort of said, look, we decided 5 years ago we're going to do this. And so instead of going to the movies, we said, we're not going to go to the movies this weekend. We're going to save the money so that we can go on a sabbatical in 5 years. And it takes long-term planning. And there are lots of places in this world you can go to where it doesn't cost you very much to live. Bali is a really, really cheap place to live. You can save. And for us, frankly, we rented out our place in New York, and that rental income paid for the entire sabbatical. So it's possible. And then the final thing I would say is, when people found out that I was doing this, everybody said, God, I wish I could do that. And my initial response was, well, why don't you? And then there's this litany of reasons people don't give. And you know what? I stopped believing it after a while. I was like, it's a mindset. It's a total mindset. If you really want to do it, do it. And if you don't make the excuses, because I've heard them all. I have heard them all.
Yeah.
And I don't minimize single moms, and I don't minimize any of that stuff. But I firmly believe that if this is something somebody really wanted to do, they figure out a way.
Yes, you
Right.
do, and it's definitely a choice. I made the decision on Sunday to go to Tokyo this coming Sunday.
Wow.
And like had decided on, I was thinking about it on Friday and was like, direct flights are quite expensive. And it's like, it's only going to be sort of, I have one thing, I have to get back for something. So I was like, it's only really 5 days in Tokyo, but yeah. And then it came to Sunday and I was like, you know what? I found some better priced direct flights and then it was like a money thing, and I was like a money thing, but then some money had cleared from a job which nearly covered the cost of the flights, and I was like, just go. And it's funny how we talk ourselves out of all this stuff, and I'm so glad I did it. And I had a friend that said to me, "You regret the things that you don't do." That some of the kind of the dying, the last words of the dying. They always regret the things they didn't do, not the things they did do. And for me, I'm very open. Like I don't have a lot of family or work pressures or things like that. And even still, with all that freedom, I had to kind of force myself to poke myself over the edge. And so I get that it's difficult for people, but we do just have to give ourselves that little push and be like, there's no reason not, just go, just do
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
live.
It's so easy to get tunnel vision into what our own issues in our lives, and to get so um so narrowly focused on our personal issues and in our own heads. Um,
Mm,
and what I think about when people talk about awakening, I think of that moment of just like seeing it, witnessing it from the outside, and kind of seeing it with clarity for what it really is. And it's
mm.
just our own minds creating our little prisons that we put ourselves in.
Yes.
And
Beautiful
there's a
point.
way, and there's a way out. There's a total way out, and it's in your mind.
Yes. So now it seems like you've done some personal growth and sort of discovered this spiritual side of yourself. How has that now, how have you brought that into work? How do you live your life now, because I'm guessing you're back to sort of being in that CEO role?
I'm back in the work world, and yeah, and some feedback I get from the book, from readers of the book, they'll go, "Oh, how sad he went back into the business world." And and I think it would have been I think it would be a less compelling story if I just kind of dropped out of society.
Mm,
and
mm,
and I think it is fundamentally the question about how, for me, fundamentally, like how can you still be part of this world, and live in a much more mindful way.
mm-hmm,
And it's really easy to withdraw and escape, but it's not really a solution to the problems that a lot of people think about. And so I've developed my own practices. First of all, I developed a different way of being in the business world.
mm-hmm,
I don't have um, this sense of need to, got to, earlier better than later, more is better than less, and
mm,
just go, go, go all the time. Um, I'm still fairly aggressive, and when I need to turn on my aggression, it's definitely available to me.
mm-hmm,
But I do it much more deliberately and less impulsively,
mm-hmm.
and um, and I find, frankly, I'm more effective that way, and I'm more, and in a way, I accomplish more. Right? I think people respond to it better than they used to. And then for me personally, there are three practices that I picked up in Bali that I have maintained, and I've incorporated them into my life. And one is meditation. The other is yoga, which is basically meditation with some movement as you're focused on the
Mm-hmm.
breath. And the third is I paint. And to
Mm.
me, that's kind of like, I mean, to me, that's an artistic expression. And, they talk about the state of flow that artists get into, where um, time and space just kind of disappear into nothingness. And it's an amazing feeling. And that in itself is a bit of an addiction, just kind of get that feeling.
Yeah.
I try not to attach to it, but it's a wonderful experience. And so with those three practices, I feel I can both engage in the world as well as be grounded. I can both be and do simultaneously.
Yeah.
And believe me, I have my moments. I'm always overshooting things. I'm overshooting equilibrium. Um, but I know what I need, and I know how to create a much fuller life for myself that is more than just withdrawing, and is and certainly more than just constantly being engaged all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Push, 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 push. I do it when I need to, but I don't do it if I don't need to. And I do find, even in tough situations, that whereas before I just kind of react to things in a very aggressive manner, I take a moment, right? I breathe,
Right.
and I respond rather than react, and I'm much more level about things. So I
Yeah.
feel like I've got these matrix moves going on, and I feel like I have these superpowers that allow
Mm-hmm.
me to, I don't know what to say, that allow me to, be in this world and be a effective professional in the more effective and better way and healthier way than I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your story and for your time today. I think it's definitely something that I just wish that people could all hear, a message that everyone could hear, specifically people that are kind of stuck in this constant corporate work, do environment. And I love that message of bringing that peace and centeredness back into your work, because it's not practical for everyone to run off and spend the rest of their lives living in a forest in Bali. And so bringing that peace to the real world is great.
Yes.
Is there what is a message or a quote or a thing that you live your life by that kind of really resonates with you that you'd like to share with people, or a message,
Oh,
even if it's not a
I don't, there's so many.
you give me a couple, I don't mind, it doesn't have to be
Well,
one.
first of all, I mean, one of the frames I have is, a lot of things. I mean, so much of whatever is in our heads is only in our heads, right? They're just
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
They don't need to be believed. And so I'd question a lot of whatever you're thinking internally, whatever's blocking you, just subject it to kind of the Socratic method and make sure that, what you're thinking is absolutely true. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of one. And then the other one I had actually before I went on sabbatical that I still think is valid is what I call my 24-hour rule. Like whenever somebody kind of drops this giant turd on your lap and kind of ruins your entire day, before you react, just
Mm-hmm.
take 24 hours to resolve, to, because your mind kind of percolates solutions all the time, right? It may not be in the
Mm-hmm.
conscious mind, but the unconscious mind is really kind of, the gears are moving. Just take a moment to take 24 hours to react, to think about things and react to respond instead of just reacting in the moment.
I think
I
that's
think sometimes
brilliant.
it's,
Yeah, brilliant advice. Brilliant advice. We will have the links to all of Ben's information in the show notes below. So you can find out more about him and his book, Take Off Your Shoes. We've also got the link to that in the description already. And I will see you guys. Well, I won't see you next week because I'll be in Tokyo. But on Saturday, I'll be speaking at the Love Yourself Summit in Los Angeles. And interestingly, a lot of the things that you have mentioned, Ben, are points that I talk about. The topic of my talk is taking charge of your thoughts and your mind and changing your life. And so a lot of the things that you've
okay.
touched on, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm talking about that. Great. For a 10% discount off the tickets, use the code Ione. It's all over my socials if you wanted to book in for that. But Ben, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on early so I can get to my audition. I appreciate it. And yeah, all the best.
It was really, really lovely to meet you.
You too. Bye.